Hey, what's up, guys? The following episode is going to be a chronicle of a tragedy that I have lived and am living through currently. There is going to be mentions of church abuse. There's going to be loss of a loved one, criminal type issues involving in the loss of a loved one. So watch with caution, but enjoy a very horrific cold case.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
I hope that you're doing well.
Yeah, me too. I hope you're ready for some drama.
Oh, I'm ready. I'm Cindy.
Limited tea.
I went too quick. I'm Cindy.
I'm Paige.
And this is Mom's the Word, where Mom knows
Or
best.
at least she's trying her best.
Anyways, we're going to take it down a level because today
We're going to bring you a very, very juicy story.
you guys, I'm not even lying to you. I'm so excited to hear this. We have now turned into Mom's the Word.
True crime.
True crime.
True crime.
And y'all may recognize Ben is here.
Ben's back
And
by high
Ben,
demand.
oh my God, gave us a snippet of something. And he was like telling us about it. We were like, what?
So we're like, Ben, you have to say this. Like, what do you mean? And so we're very
What do you
excited.
mean you're living a true crime here?
What do you mean? So,
Welcome, Ben.
Thank you for having me back.
people are very interested in your story.
I know
Yes.
all the comments were like, we want to hear Ben's
Yes.
story. So
Surprisingly, they do want to hear you.
I know that one chick didn't show up, but that's all right. She's afraid. I don't even remember her name. I know I sound vengeful. It just made me laugh so hard because it was a valid criticism, and I really appreciated that she voiced that. I did.
You do love valid
I
criticism.
love valid
Only if it's
criticism.
valid, though.
Yeah, if it's not, he doesn't care. But if
No,
it's
straight up. If it's nonsensical, why are you talking? Don't tell that to me. I
Do
don't
it.
care. Sounds like I don't like the way you breathe. I'm like,
Oh, well.
bye,
That's what I do.
bye.
oh, it's me. It's me.
So yeah, I enjoy valid criticism. So I'm going to issue a trigger warning right now, which
Yeah.
I don't typically care about those or do those, and I don't know the appropriate boxes to put this
That's
in
for us.
But the trigger warning is tragedy, loss of a loved one, and crime. So if those
Would
things,
you say church abuse would potentially be included in that?
I might say that.
Might as well
gonna
put it on
try
there.
not
We'll put it
to-
on
I'm going to try not to hit them too hard because there's a time and place for that. But I will. I mean, they're a crucial part of the story in all aspects. So yeah, church
Well,
abuse.
I think that it's important to note as you go into this story that the church hurt you, not the religion.
No, absolutely. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Alrighty.
And
I love
I'll
that.
say before we get into this, and because you guys like to joke that I'm like straight and narrow, like a prude, which I'm really not. I am. I like to think that I walk the line of being a degenerate pretty well. But my faith, I never blame God for anything. Even so, I don't look at war and famine and strife and blame God. I understand that we were given the ability to do something about that, and its existence is the result of our apathy towards it. So I don't ever blame God. I blame us for everything, as you should. So, okay.
Let's jump into this.
This has been that sentence was absolutely
Literally
Ben's
Ben.
personality in the most ways. So I'm excited.
yeah. So
But where did this
I
all
shouldn't
be?
say I'm excited because it's a really
I know you guys
messed
sound
up
like you're
story.
like, oh yeah, your
I fall
tragedy's
asleep
gonna be
to this at night.
abused.
Yes.
Yeah.
Start us at the beginning, Ben. Where's this happening at?
I'll lay a little groundwork, and I'll
Please
try
do
not to
it.
go too long. So my family, we grew up in East Texas. I was born in Nacogdoches, Texas. We lived in Longview for a short time. Moved back to Nacogdoches. There was my older brother Elijah, older brother Sam, and then me, and then my mom and dad, and cats and dogs, and in and out. And we were homeschooled for a time, and then when we moved to Nacogdoches, we were public school temporarily. And my older brother Elijah had a lot of difficulty in public school because he was not a traditional learner, and he was always very spatial. He was always like, when it came to geometrics and working things out, it's great. He became a machinist, eventually went to community college and got his machining degree, and he just had a gift for it. He was crafting things on the CNC machine, and it was like, okay. But of course, public school made him feel stupid.
Yeah.
And first, I don't know how this happened, but he was bullied a lot in public school. And so my mom pulled all of us out unilaterally and started homeschooling us, which was great. I love homeschool. I wish
Yeah.
that I had never gone to public schools. I've mentioned in previous episodes. And so pretty normal childhood. We were all really close. We spent a lot of time together. We used to do this thing where we would just randomly decide that we were going to pick somebody's room, and we'd lay out a pallet on the floor, and all of us just like sleep on the floor together, and we'd tell jokes and all that stuff. And
How close in age were you guys?
So Elijah was 6 years older than me. Sam's 4 years older than me. And so
Exactly my older siblings'
Yeah.
age differences. My oldest sister is 6 and then 4.
and I got picked on. I mean, they held me down and threw footballs
Yeah.
at me and stuff like that.
Younger
but
brother.
Yeah, I was the little brother, you know. But they also would hold me up when I was roller skating and tie my shoes for me. And so it was like all things were balanced. And I would say it wasn't until like Elijah was a teenager and he just got really weird and distant. He'd go on long walks away from the house and he just, I don't know what he went through.
Yeah.
I don't know his story and I never will. I know what I went through with our parents and I know what Sam went through with our parents. And honestly, like our parents weren't that bad. They had their issues, but every parent does. You know, my dad had a really hard childhood and none of my parents were abusive in any way. My dad was stern and hard, and really the only times he was affectionate were when he was drunk, and he was seldom ever drunk. And so, but he would have these moments of affirmation with us, really genuine. But it's like my dad had a shitty childhood.
Yeah.
So I don't ever look back on my child. Like my dad will randomly apologize to me sometimes, and I'm like, I literally never think about
My dad
anything
does
you
the
did to
same
me
stuff.
in my childhood. Like you've made me who I am. You're the
Yeah.
lesson, the example. Like I maybe I have some repressed trauma that he's apologizing for. I don't think so. But I can't think of a time where there's one time when I was I talk about this all the time. It's so embarrassing. I'm going to mention it now. And Amanda's probably listening to this right now. She's going to laugh. Jay, if you,
Not Jay over there
Jay
watching
with his
TikToks.
TikToks, dude, turn the volume down. I was a Cub Scout. I was a little Cub Scout for a while, and we did the Derby, like the little Cub Scout Derby. It was my first time doing it, and I was excited. My dad and I worked on the car all morning, and then when the time of the competition came, he and my brothers were there, and then when I looked up, they were gone. They had gone to this. My dad had gotten a hotel room for him and my mom for Valentine's Day, and he took my brothers to go fix it up, and that just hurt.
That's
Like,
nice, yeah.
but it's like. Even as a kid, I was like, well, he's doing something nice for
Yeah.
mom. So like, but that's like the one story I can think of, and it's like. He wasn't like, fuck this kid. He was
Yeah.
like, I'm trying to make things really good in my marriage
Yeah.
as best as I can. I'm not emotionally vulnerable. I don't know how to tell this woman how I feel. So yeah, I don't know what Elijah went through, but he got really weird and distant. And then when he was like, I want to say 15 or 16, he went to Youth with a Mission in Tyler, Texas, YWAM. He met this girl named Jessica. And after that, the departure of my brother from our collective family unit really began. He became really withdrawn. He and this girl, they were both like trauma bonded for some reason. They created this narrative that like their families were trying to keep them apart, when in reality, like he was convinced after 2 weeks of knowing her at YWAM, he's going to marry her.
Yeah.
And it was that. And he would, every night at 8:30 p.m., he would talk to her on the phone until like 10:30 or 11:30. And this is back when houses had a phone. So he'd have the
Yeah.
house phone
One
tied up for 3
singular
hours.
phone.
To combat this, my mom got an actual like corded phone, and he would open our windows and put the phone on the windowsill and sit outside on the patio and talk to her on the corded phone. But it's like, after that, he kind of disappeared, and it was just me and Sam had been really, I don't want to throw around the word abusive. He was physically mean to me. Like, and that only stopped when he had a dream that he had beaten me to death, and he like came into the closet while I was getting ready, and he was like crying, and he hugged me, and he like apologized for everything. And like, after that, there were still moments where he would like dead arm me and stuff like that, but he gradually walked it back. And then when I was 13, I climbed over the 6 foot mark, and he suddenly got very nice. I never got to beat the shit out of my brother, and I kind of regret that a little bit. But then it was me and Sam. Me and Sam really got close as Elijah withdrew, and you know, even to this day, like we always like played video games together, and we would go do stuff together. We worked together with my dad, but Elijah just was convinced that he had to be this like outcast, and he just there was a lot of stuff he did that didn't make sense. And so I'm sure there's a reason for it, and I've talked to my parents about it, and they're not too sure. But so he kind of withdrew, and then years passed. My brother Sam went to Christ for the Nations Institute in Dallas, Oak Cliff. That's where he did his thing, and that sort of began my family's migration. We got involved with an NAR, or a charismatic church in the Dallas area that I won't name. NAR's New Apostolic Reformation. Very charismatic, very believing, like the movements of the Holy Spirit. They're very like kind of cut from the same cloth as Bethel, if you guys know what that is in California. It's a very highly charismatic church. Borderline heretical sometimes, making their own gospel. They can sometimes go like 4 or 5 sermons without actually like quoting the Bible, which can be problematic. It's super emotionally charged, but it's beautiful. It's what we needed at the time, And my mom got involved with the prayer room up there, and she decided that she wanted to move to Dallas. And at the time, I was kind of self-destructing my life for no good reason. And I was a manager at Starbucks, and I dropped out of college because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. Thought I wanted to do radio, TV. Then thought I wanted to do marketing and journalism. And then I just, because I had changed my major once and I was thinking about changing it again, I dropped out because I was like, I'm not going to pour any more money into this. I was only $1,400 in on loans. I had scholarships and a $1,400 loan. And I was like, I can't.
I'm over it.
Yeah. I don't want to take on any funds. Like, go ahead.
They also teach us though, like if you don't know what you're going to do, don't waste money going to college. So
Yeah.
like that's the normal reaction
Yeah.
would be to pull yourself if you're like, okay, I don't know what I want to do.
That was common then. I don't really hear it that much anymore. But like back then,
very
our
common.
teachers, our counselors even were like, you should go to college if you know what you want to
Yeah.
do or you think you'll figure it out. But like this could be potentially very expensive for you. So don't.
Oh, yeah.
Which I appreciated. But I remember I had a really terrible night. And I didn't have a car at the time. I like biked everywhere. It was a small town, Nacogdoches. I could bike to wherever I wanted. And I walked to my parents' house at 3 a.m. and I knew where all the keys were and everything. And I let myself into my mom's office and I just sat there until she got up at like 7. She found me in there. I just told her, I was like, because they were moving to Dallas, and I was like, I need to go with you because if I don't. She gave me this book. I can't remember what it was, but I remember I read the first chapter and immediately it was a faith-based book, but I knew that if I stayed in Nacogdoches in the life that I had built, I would never be that kind of person. Mm-hmm. So I told her, I was like, I need to go with you. And she was overjoyed. And so I uprooted my life and I moved to Dallas with them. Elijah had ended up marrying this woman. This woman had developed MS like 3 or 4 years into their marriage. And Elijah had a really strong savior complex. So that was it. There was even all, because the MS is not a red flag. MS is unfortunate. It's just, that's just reality. But there were a billion trillion red flags about their relationship and about her over attachment to her family, as can sometimes happen in Hispanic families, and her parents specifically, that the MS just kind of voided everything. He didn't care anymore because he was going to save her.
Yeah.
And so I remember their wedding in New Mexico. And I remember my dad multiple times telling him, like, you can go. Like, we'll handle everybody. We'll take care of everything. Like, you don't have to do this. Because he had a moment where I think he kind of cracked and his doubts and his insecurities and everything showed. And like, it's so funny because we always joke about Elijah being a dunderhead. And this will come into play in the story later, Elijah being an idiot. He left Nacogdoches he drove to New Mexico, Alamogordo, New Mexico for their wedding. And he called us 6 hours after he left. And he was like, I forgot the rings in my bedside table. Can you guys go get them? And so me and my mom drove to get his wedding rings and to take them with us as we went to New Mexico. And that did not help his case, as everybody was saying, you are not ready to get married. But like, doesn't matter what you tell a kid. Doesn't matter what you tell somebody with a savior complex. They have somebody to save. And I say this because I also had a savior complex at one time.
Me too. Captain Save a Hoe.
Yeah, Captain Save a Hoe and ruin yourself.
Yeah,
that's what you do.
Light it on fire.
But they got married. Her MS kind of, it ebbed and flowed. There was a time where she was almost like it had regressed in a major way. She was like playing guitar again. She was a big music writer. Like she's playing guitar totally fine. Like life was good. And then her mom came to visit. And 3 days into her mom visiting my brother, she told him that she hadn't just come to visit. She was going to take Jessica back to New Mexico because she needed to see the doctors there and start taking the meds that they recommended for her and everything. And Jessica couldn't tell her mom no. So Elijah told her that if she left, that was it. They were going to get a divorce. And she left. She went with her mom. And within 6 months of going back home, she'd completely gone back to being immobile, back in a wheelchair.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Now, the last I saw of her was a GoFundMe from 3 years ago, and she's in horrible state. I have no idea. I have no idea what happened to her.
Sad.
And that's not to say that if she had stayed with my brother, that things would have been hunky dory. But the treatments and the things that they were doing, because there was a mixture of pharmaceutical and holistic things that they were doing.
Yeah.
No matter what you think of holistic health, she was playing guitar. She was playing
it
guitar.
was working.
Like MS is horrendous to witness, but to watch her go from shakily walking down the aisle at their wedding and needing help to like walking herself out to the bench next to the house and playing guitar, it was nuts. Absolutely nuts. So that kind of broke him, and the divorce broke him, and he wasn't doing a whole lot. He and I had moved back in together before I left Nacogdoches. We had an apartment together, and which I left him with to leave to go to Dallas. He knew that I needed to go because he was my big brother, but I stuck him with that lease, which I always regret. I wish I hadn't done that. But very shortly after I moved up there to Dallas and got involved at this church, he decided he was going to move up to Dallas. So he broke the lease, which was no big deal because it was an old person who owned it in Nacogdoches, and they didn't care. They were going to rent it out to another college kid. And so he moved up there with us, and we got involved in the church there. And he found a small group at a different church that he was a part of. He was being social, and we, for the first time since we had all been teenagers, we were all living under the same roof again. Because Sam had graduated from CFNI, and he was waiting for his fiance to graduate as well, so they could get married. And so we were all living in my parents' house together. And it was like a chance for us to do it right. You know what I'm saying? Like to be a family. We're all going to this, various churches, and we're focused on rebuilding our family and doing it right. And like, we're not holding grudges. And so it was a really beautiful time. I had gotten involved with Starbucks there. I got involved with the church there. I did the churches.
I still can't believe you ever worked at Starbucks. Like, this man is such a Starbucks hater. So the fact that you ever worked at a Starbucks is
where it
crazy
started.
to me.
Did you know that General George Washington was once I might get the rank wrong. He was a lieutenant in the British Army. He was.
This is so bad.
George Washington. That's where he got his experience.
Actually, guys,
He got his experience, and so like. He was more qualified than anybody to wage a war. Yeah, working for Starbucks was great, and it allowed me to transfer to Dallas. And I got like a $4 raise when I transferred to Dallas because cost of living was different. I remember, my first day there, I transferred as a barista, and my manager Avery was such a chill ass dude, one of the coolest dudes I've ever met, and he was in the back. Put me in the system. He came back and he was like, "Hey, just so you know, you're only making like $9 an hour. I'm gonna take you up to 11 because there's a cost of living difference in Dallas." And I was like, "Sweet." And he went back and he came back. He was like, "Hey, I need a shift lead. You want to be a shift lead? I'm gonna take you up to 13 an hour." And I was like, "Hell yeah, dude."
Yes, I do.
So I was like, I was making more money. I banked at Wells Fargo, which was next door to Starbucks. It was had my stock options as well. The stock options back then were worth something. When I left Starbucks, I sold all my stock options and bought a watch. It was the stupidest thing I ever did. I should have just kept it in the market. Don't do that. But anyway, I had transferred Starbucks, and then I got an offer by one of the pastors at this church to work at his coffee shop for him. He invited me, and it was less hours, less pay, no benefits, and I couldn't resist. It was like less hours, less pay, no benefits. Yeah. Just felt like it felt like the right thing to do. And it was also an emotionally charged environment. And he was a pastor, and I was like, it's a good opportunity to be involved in the church even more because it was kind of what I was doing. Now, all that to say, within 6 months, I had stepped into the store manager position. And then the general manager at the time, Joe, he wanted to step away and further his career another way. So I took over his position in another 6 months. And so it was you got me where I am now, owning my own coffee company.
That's true.
And so I think it was October of 2014. These people came to a church service, and they were from a Messianic Jewish synagogue in Cabo San Lucas, and Hurricane Odell was happening at that time. And I don't remember how powerful it was, but I know Hurricane Odell was devastating for that area. And so they were talking about the damage. They were talking about their congregation primarily consisted of people from this barrio called Caribe, which was located in a dried out riverbed at the base of a mountain. And I don't know if you know this, but when it rains horrendously, dried out riverbeds just straight up become rivers again. Yeah. And so this entire barrio was just swept away in the rain. And so they were just sharing about the devastation and the destruction, and they did like a special tithe as they do, and people were throwing money in there. But I was making less money and I had no hours, and I didn't have a lot to give. And I was dating ex-wife, and she was trying to save up. I didn't have any money, but I felt this strong pull that I was supposed to do something. And I prayed about it, and I felt really strongly that I was supposed to go volunteer myself. And so I went up to them and I was like, I don't have money, but I've worked construction in my youth. I spent the years of like 12 to 16 working with my dad in the construction field. Did hundreds of hours of free labor on our house, built sheds, moved fences way more times than I'd like to count. And I don't know if you need it, but I'll come help rebuild. And they were ecstatic. And over the next several days, I had meetings with the head guy, and he took me to lunch and just talked about what was going on down there. And it just sounded crazy. It was an awesome ministry, and they were doing a good thing. And the church that we were going to, I told them about what I wanted to do, and the church paid for my ticket and everything through the mission fund. And I went in November. Leading up to going, Elijah was with us, and he'd gone through like a couple jobs. He was temp agency because my mom and dad all have a strong heart for justice. My dad detests incompetence, and my mom detests corruption. So as a result, we jumped from church to church a lot as kids, because anytime they taught something that wasn't biblical, specifically to keep women down, my mom would call a meeting with the pastor, tell him he's wrong, and we would be unwelcome at the church anymore. And so,
At least she told him he was wrong. So
I love
she
her.
but as a result, me and all my brothers are the same way. Now, Sam and I are a lot more tactile about how we view corruption and how we view laziness, and how we understand that they are parts of our society. And if you want to remove them, you have to entrench yourself around them and then yank them out. You can't just be like, you're fucking lazy. Like you're greedy. You're corrupt. Elijah didn't have any tact. He didn't have any guile whatsoever. He saw it and he called it out for what it was, and lost him a lot of jobs, which I don't think he regretted at all, because he wanted to work for somebody that was worthy of his time. And so he was just going from job to job. And so I was like, hey man, I'm going on this mission trip. Now, I don't know what you're doing, but like, I think you should come with me. Like, this might be a good chance for you. You're kind of in a reset, redefining who you are as a person. And like, it's a once in a lifetime opportunity, you know, we can go together. And so he was like, I don't know. I'll think about it. And then he called me the next day asking for details. And then he got his ticket paid for through the church fund as well. And then just kind of went all in. He was like, I really feel like I'm going to be able to stay down there. I was like, what do you mean? He's like, I think I'm going to be like, I'm going to live down there. I'm going to live in the barrio with these people. He's like, I haven't met these people. Like he met the head guy of the organization down there, and they had lunch together. And you know, he said, yeah, you should totally come. You're welcome to come. And so, but Elijah like sold his vehicle prematurely before he left, and sold basically anything he owned, and just prepared all of us that like he was going to go move down there. And so we went down there. It was a 10-day trip in November. At the time that I was there was also a mission crew from Interstate Batteries. They do like a mission trip internally, which I think is really cool, like a really cool thing to do as a corporate like body. And the first night we were there, they were like talking to everybody, introducing themselves to everybody, and they introduced me as like part of their organization. They were like, this is Ben, like he's new with us, but he's a great part of the team. He brings lots to the table. If y'all need anything, just talk to him. And I was like, what?
First day there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and I had conversations with these people, and I'll give you guys the basic setup. So this organization was 4 people.
You're a newbie.
Yeah.
I'm seeing red flags here.
Yeah, I've seen a couple.
I was 19 years old. No, I was 20. I was freshly 20. So I was freshly 20.
Frontal lobe not full
Yes. There was 4 people. There was a man whom I won't name, his wife whom I won't name, and 2 girls who were not related to them. Yeah. So these girls each, and
I'm like ready for name
this
dropping.
is some tea from the future that I'll go ahead and share now to give you guys more backup. These girls, one had moved down to Cabo San Lucas and taken her immediate family with her, including her grandfather and her sister. And the other had kind of renounced her family and moved down there and considered these people her family. So all in all, could have been, and these girls were very they were very smart. They were very brilliant. They were 18 and 19 and finishing up their bachelor's degrees. No, their masters. They were finishing up their master's degrees online. And so like they were intelligent, they were talented, they played piano, they sang beautifully, they fluent in Spanish, and like I was just I was entranced. It was crazy. And they were down here in Cabo helping people. They were they were one day they were destitute, the next day they suddenly have hundreds of thousands of pesos to help people. It's crazy, and you want to see that as a kid. You want to see that as somebody who's hungry for God.
Yeah.
And so it was a crazy time. We spent the entire 10 days rebuilding the church pad in the barrio and building some cinder block structures that could withstand future storms. And we did Renegade like in the barrio building. It was post Odell, so it was kind of like lawless out there. Like the military was surrounding the resort parts of town to secure them and make sure that everything was okay. They had watchtowers up, and they were obviously enforcing some sort of a curfew a little bit. Mm-hmm. In the barrio, nobody cares. Like you can't even see the barrios from the resorts. There's no lights. There's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Like we were out there working one night until like 9, and you could just look, and the Cabo on the shore was shining like a shimmering jewel, and we were just in complete darkness. You could hear like babies crying in the darkness. Stuff like that. And they had one power line So the government does run power to them. They get one power line run out to them to one power pole, and everybody else just pulls their power off that pole. They run it themselves.
Wow.
So in storms, power lines fall, kids get electrocuted. It's horrible. Happens all the time. But we were a renegade building. We were mixing sand from the ground with the very limited concrete mix we had, and we would go and find water trucks and pay them. They were supposed to be delivering water for the government. We'd pay them to come deliver water to us. We paid this government worker one day. He had a bulldozer. He's supposed to be clearing debris. We paid him 50 pesos, and he came and helped us for 4 hours, which is not supposed to do, but it was cool. I was like, this is a place where stuff gets done. You know what I mean? And it gets done in a very shady, dangerous way.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, but for me and for Elijah, it was God damn, this is great. We can just make it happen here. We can, and I don't even know if fun is the right word. It was just if you want it and if you need it to happen, you can make it happen.
Yeah.
I didn't have to call the government. I didn't have to get permitting. I just had to say, these people need a church building. We're going to do whatever it takes to make it happen.
Yeah.
And so it was a crazy trip. Elijah really came out of his shell. We spent time with the congregation. We got to go on a deep sea fishing trip at the end of it that was set up for the Interstate Batteries people, which was awesome. We'd been pouring concrete all week. I'll tell the story because it's very symbolic and very, it's very awesome. We'd been pouring concrete all week, and we both woke up on the Saturday morning, and our throats hurt so bad because we've been inhaling concrete dust. And imagine the worst sore throat you've ever had times 4. It was. I've never had a sore throat as bad as the one that I had in Mexico. But we were going on this deep sea fishing trip, and there was a boat with 9 people, and then there was our boat with 3. It was me, my brother, and some woman who was with the Interstate Batteries crew. And our captain was young, and he had this really crazy look in his eye. He loved what he did. He, me talking about being the George Washington of Starbucks, this dude was the George Washington of deep sea fishing trips. He showed us the map. He showed us where everybody else was going, and he's like, we're going to go all the way over here where the Pacific meets the Sea of Cortez. That's what we're going to do. I think it's the Sea of Cortez right down there. And I was like, fuck it. Let's do it, dude. I don't care. And so as we're heading towards the Pacific, the boat starts gradually going from this to this, sideways on the waves. The waters were horrible and turbulent. And he pulled the boat around. And he was like, there is a school of marlins right here. He's like, I'm going to throw it out and we're going to catch one. And I was like, looked at all of them, looked at Elijah and the woman. I was like, let's do it. And he threw it out and it hooked. And he handed me the rod, and I know how to fish, but I didn't get to fish a lot growing up. I've never deep sea fished. And nobody told me that when you deep sea fish, the fish are 100 plus pounds, and you are fighting them. And so within 5 minutes, every muscle in my arm was completely fried. And I turn around, and because I need to hand the rod off to somebody. And the woman's right there, and she's like, oh, no, I'm okay. I don't want to fish. And my brother's nowhere to be found. And I was like, where's Elijah? And they're like, what? I was like, where's my brother? And they're like, he went below deck. He was throwing up. He's throwing up down there. So I continue to fight this fish at 25 minutes, okay? And then I hand the rod off. I was like, because Elijah has still not come back up. I was like, I need to go check on him. I handed the rod to the guy. I said, hold it for me. Hold it. Do not let this fish go. I go downstairs. Elijah is hugging the toilet. And I check on him. He throws up massively. And then he just slumps over next to the toilet, completely passed out. Dude is passed out. And now in my head, I'm like, I'm going to catch this fish for my brother and for myself. This is personal now. The ocean, this bitch ocean has taken out my brother. So I get up there.
I get that way.
And I sit in the chair and we just fight. And I've never deep sea fished before, so I don't know the methodology. The captain is giving me tips. He's telling me what I'm doing wrong. So there's 15 minutes of me doing it wrong and being corrected and learning. And I stopped to throw up 4 times because my throat's also caked in concrete. And I could vomit just thinking about it right now. I throw up 4 times, and I'm chugging water. He's giving me water. So he's like, "You can't pass out." He started making a joke. He's like, "You pass out, we lose the fish." And so after an hour and a half of fighting that thing, I'm fighting, and then suddenly just I thought the line broke because it was suddenly very easy, and I was like, "Hey, why is this easy?" He's like, "Stop reeling." And so he pulled the boat around, and we get to we get around to it, and there floating on the surface of the water is this massive fish. And it died. It had a heart attack from stress, from fighting me for so long. And then we pulled it in. I don't have the picture anymore because it was on my old Instagram, which I nuked a long time ago. It was a 145-pound marlin.
Oh, my God.
145-pound marlin. It was a little over 6 feet long. It was massive and beautiful. That's cool. And he congratulated me, and he called me Vaquero, which I thought was nice, a cowboy. I really enjoyed that. And then we went in, and it was like being a celebrity. of the sea because
Right.
all the birds were following us, but because our fish was so massive, we're literally going into the port, and I turn around and there's this little fucking brown head staring at me from the back of the boat, and it's a sea lion. The sea
my
lion
gosh.
jumped up on the back of the boat and is just chilling. And he's like looking at my fish, and the captain like runs over and he has a bucket of fish that he keeps. He pulls out, he starts throwing fish to the sea lion. All the tourist boats see the sea lion on the back of our boat. They start following us, and Elijah comes up, and I was like, dude, I got it. Like we got the fish. And so we were sunburned, burned by the salt. Throats were even worse. Elijah was in a horrible state, and the other team had been back for like 2 hours.
Oh my
They had been
gosh.
back. Like their trip, they went out very quick. They caught some small fish. They were done. We'd been out for so long, and the drive back took, the ride back took forever. And then I get to shore. We put out a call to tell, hey, come pick us up. We'd like to come back.
Yeah.
But then the captain asked me something I hadn't thought about. He's like, what do you want to do with the fish? I was like, I don't know. He's like, do you want to stuff it? I'm like, how much does that cost? He's like, probably $2,000-3,000. I was like, I don't want to do that. I was like, what can I do with it? He's like, well, we can fillet it, butcher it, and send it with you for free. And I was like, okay, I'll feed the church then. So
Wow.
we ended up going back with like 2 massive coolers full of this marlin, which I never got to eat, unfortunately. And then the next day they were taking people back. And so me and Elijah just chilled at the synagogue, and he was sick as a dog. Like he was completely demolished, probably had a heat stroke out there. It's a miracle he didn't die on the water. And so I got to like take care of him, which was a unique experience. Like I got to take care of him. I walked to this mega up the road. It's like Mexican Sam's Club, sort of. That's a bad analogy. It's not as big as Sam's Club, but it's got everything in there. It's got clothes in there. I bought this red, like maroon puffer vest in there, and bought him sandwiches and food, and like just took care of him. And my entire life, Elijah had really been a caretaker and taking care of me. And so one of our last experiences together, I got to take care of him,
Yeah.
And so the next day we had breakfast with the rabbi, and he told him that, he wanted to stay. And the rabbi said he would only allow Elijah to stay if my dad, how did he word it? Another red flag that everybody overlooked. He said, you can only stay if your father passes his covering to me or something like that. Essentially, like spiritually gives you to me to caretake, because you'll be my responsibility, right? And he made a good case, like with the actions of Elijah would represent this company and this synagogue, and any malfeasance would reflect poorly on them. So like it was essentially a way of like putting liability, like allowing.
Giving cult vibes.
It definitely was.
How old was your brother?
I was 20, so he was 26. He was
That's
26.
so crazy to
Yeah.
me. Like a grown man.
Well,
Yeah.
think about these dancers in the 3M cult that are doing the whole Dancing with the Devil, the Netflix series.
Yeah, I know, but like you're like 26. Like you wouldn't think your dad would need to give anything.
Oh, right.
Well,
You're grown.
Biblically, still, like there was a covering of a father. That's
Okay.
And so my dad, he was uncomfortable about it, but he talked to Elijah, and then he wanted to talk to me about it. And he was like, Benjamin, what do you think about this? What do you think about these people? And I was enamored.
Yeah.
We've been helping people all week. We spent an entire day filling up 100-pound sacks of food to give to people in the barrio. And they cried, and like there were kids who got to come out of the barrio and have a hot meal for the first time in weeks. And why the fuck wouldn't I be okay with Elijah staying?
Right.
Yeah.
These people
Something
are making a difference.
Yeah.
And so I said it was great. And they took me to the airport 2 hours later. My brother and I embraced, and then the rabbi took a picture of us, which I, to this date, can't find and can't get a hold of. And then I left. So that was at the end of like the second week of November in 2014. Sam and his fiancee Kayla were set to be married in January of 2015. So we approached that date, and Elijah was like, he's obviously going to come back for the wedding. He has to. And so we were talking about like dates. When is he going to come back? And we told Sam one date, and Elijah was like, I'm actually going to come back a week early. Surprise Sam. We can do like a big old bachelor party. It's going to be awesome. And so everything was set in motion for that. And the date that he was going to fly back was January 14th. And on January 12th, I confirmed with him. I was like, hey man, I'm picking you up 10:30, Love Field. I've got this. I got a new car. Somebody in the church gave me a car, which was awesome. It was like a really old 2004 Infiniti QX4, but it was fucking awesome. It was my car. It was awesome, dude. It was a great car. So I was excited. I was like managing, this coffee shop at the time. Let's just say the name of the coffee shop. I was managing this coffee shop at the time. So like my life, like I really, in the 3 months that he had been gone, I was I turned it around, and we got updates. He was keeping a journal, and he was doing a blog, and there were pictures of him holding like babies and like smiling with people, and he was like close to people, and he had friends his age, and it was like, who is this dude? Like, my brother was not a social guy really, and it was crazy. I was like, I'm so excited to see him, and I'm excited like for our and for our family to like have this. Like, it felt like we were gonna have our first like celebration, and God knows how long. Like, Sam was gonna get married, we were gonna party, and it was gonna be awesome.
Yeah.
And so everything was set in motion. January 14th rolls around. I get off work, and I head to Love Field at 10:30 to pick him up. And have you guys ever been to Love Field before?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can't idle. You got to drive that circle, right?
Keep going.
Yeah, you got to keep going.
Cannot
so
sit there.
10:30, I pull up. I'm early. I like to be early, and I just look for him. Circle. Look for him. Circle. 10:45 rolls around. I call him. Goes to voicemail. Text him. Don't get a text back. Call him several more times. Goes straight to voicemail. 11 o'clock rolls around. I'm still circling. Still driving. I'm looking. I'm trying to look through the window and roll as slowly as I can, and I see because the way the flights worked, it's Cabo. You either go to, and I'm sure there's different ways, but for Southwest out of Love Field, you either go to Denver or you go to LAX and then fly to Cancun. Sorry, Cabo. And so I was looking at all those, and I saw the flight arrival. It was like luggage unloading, and then it was done. All the luggage was gone. And so, it's 11:30. I've been circling the airport for an hour, and my brother's not there. He's not answering his phone, and Elijah is an idiot. Him missing his flight and not charging his phone is not outside of the realm of possibility.
Right, so you're not like red flag.
I'm just mad.
Yeah.
I'm just mad because like
What is
how
wasting my
how
time, bro.
typical, how inconsiderate of Elijah to like miss his flight and not have the decency to buy a phone charger to let me know,
Yeah.
And so I drive home pissed off, and
I can't imagine getting to that state of being like, okay, I just got to go home.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I would just keep circling and be like, fuck, what do I do?
Yeah.
he's not calling me. He probably missed his flight. Like I'd driven around the airport for an hour, and so I went home, and we lived like 5 minutes from the airport at the time, so it wasn't a big deal if I had to go back. If it was like 11:30 and he was like, "Yo, sorry,
Yeah.
I met this girl," it's like,
Yeah.
all right, whatever. And so I get home, I go into my room, lay down in bed, pissed off. My mom comes in, and she's like, "Where's Elijah?" And I was like, "Fucking, he probably missed his flight. He wasn't there." And she was like, "What do you mean he wasn't there?" I was like, "I circled the airport for an hour. He wasn't there. He didn't get off the plane. No luggage, nothing." And she was like, "That's not okay. Like, it's not okay that you don't know where he is right now." And I was like, "You call him. You text him. Like, he's not answering me."
Yeah.
And so she did. Went straight to voicemail, and she was like, "Ben, this is not a normal scenario. Like, that he doesn't have a charged phone, that he's not there. Like, we need to figure this out." And so I called the rabbi, and we started asking him questions, and his answers were really kind of not clear on where Elijah was. He said that he dropped Elijah off at the airport and he got on his flight, and it's the last time he saw him. And then as we pressed more, the stories weren't lining up. And then he was like, "Well, he had talked about possibly staying, so maybe he had his friends pick him up from the airport and didn't go back home." And we were like, "That's not something he would do." And then he hung up the phone and he texted us, and he was like, "I don't want to waste my minutes talking about this. We can text about it if you have any issues, but I've told you all I know." And so that begins. January 15th is the first day of trying to figure out what's going on. And about that night we knew there was an issue, but about like 9 or 10 a.m. we realized there was like a severe issue, that this was not him missing his plane. This was him being completely unaccounted for from January 12th until January 15th, where we were at. And he had, he live updated his life a little bit on Facebook. He'd gone to see The Hobbit with his friends down there. He had made some friends. He had a roommate as well that he stayed with at the synagogue. And so we started reaching out to these people, and they either said they didn't know, or they said they didn't want to talk to us about it. And so
Your mom had a gut feeling.
Oh, God.
my parents continued to press and continued to ask questions. We shared with our church,
Goodness.
and we had this great couple. I'm going to shout them out, Travis and Sarah Maxwell, whom I love dearly. They kind of just like embedded themselves in our home and got to work. Like I still have a vivid memory of Sarah on the phone with either Dallas police or the FBI cussing them out for they couldn't help us. They're like, "Well, he didn't go missing in America, so we can't help. Like, this is not an us problem. That's a Mexico problem." And she went off on. And Sarah is one of the sweetest, kindest. Like, Cindy, you and her are cut from the same cloth. Like,
Oh, not me.
imagine Cindy spouting off the most like emotionally charged vitriolic statements at somebody.
Yeah.
And she was well within her rights to do it. And they just went to town, went to work, like calling people. The embassy down there was uninterested in helping. The tourist agencies uninterested in helping. They said that they would put up some flyers for us.
So, okay, so the 12th is when he was supposed to make his trek back.
The
to you?
14th was. The 12th was the last time I spoke to him.
Okay, and then the 14th he was supposed to be, but to you by the
10:30.
14th.
Yeah, 10:30. January
And then
14th.
so the 15th, y'all were like, "This ain't it."
Yep,
and you started.
Something's going on. Yeah, so we started our search.
Oh,
And the rabbi was a little more communicative.
This is wild.
Yeah, and
Like he goes missing. Your mom was like, "This is not normal." And I'm like, I'm queen of my phone dying. Like I really am. I picked Chris up from the airport literally 2 weeks ago, and my phone was dead. I had to use the phone at the airport. Like, where you at? But like,
yeah. So man,
sketchy.
coming back through it all, just
I bet you look back now and you're like, there were so many red flags.
Yep. There's a lot of regret. A lot of.
Him selling all of his shit was the first one for me.
Well, he nobody forced him to do that. That was really within Elijah's like.
That's just scary.
wheelhouse.
Like you're giving up everything. To
He
just
he
go.
didn't have anything. He had a divorce and he had no consistent job. So like
He was ready to go.
to him, this was an opportunity to do something. Yeah, to start over.
And then for you to see pictures of him on his blog happy and stuff, you're like, wow, this is exciting.
Yeah.
Like he's happy.
And I want to say the good that was being done was not false. They were really helping people.
You were helping.
Yes.
So yeah, what I don't even want to I can't find the timeline. It doesn't matter because it's all a blur. It was a massive. You have first 48 are the most crucial, right?
Yes.
In retrospect, we already lost those by January 14th. He'd been gone since January 12th, probably. But we started putting up rewards, and we would post rewards for information. We were offering $500,000 for any information that led to his discovery, and
Because at this point, you still can't get in contact with him.
yeah,
Even after the wedding for weeks.
So we're still. This is within the first week. So Sam's wedding is on January 30th. Hadn't even happened yet.
Wait, so you said that the 12th is when you last talked to him?
Yep.
And then the rabbi said the 15th. So that's what y'all are keeping in your mind? Like, well, at least he's seeing him the 15th? Or y'all
No.
Like,
When
No,
did
the
I-
15th was whenever the
15th
wedding or the bachelor.
No, okay. I was supposed to pick him up on January 14th. We were going to do a bachelor party at some point. Sam's wedding was until the 30th of January.
but the rabbi said he dropped him off that night.
Yeah, on the
14th.
Yeah, the 14th that morning. He said he dropped him off. And so it became a really weird show where the stories weren't lining up. Nobody down there would talk to us. We were trying to figure out if he had actually ever been at the airport. And this very affluential individual who was heavily tied to this church we were going to called us. And he said, "Hey, brother, I got a friend who works at Southwest, and I asked him to look into this because this is a really messed up thing. And they let me know that your brother walked into the airport, he canceled his ticket, he took the money, and he walked out." And I was like, "What?" He's like, "Yeah, they've got confirmation that his ticket has been canceled, and he got a refund for it, and he left the airport."
Was this accurate information?
And well, so my mom, my dad, all of us, we're not trusting anybody. So
Yeah.
my brother Sam and I get tasked with going down to Southwest's HQ by
Yeah.
Love Field. And we spend probably half a day there trying to talk to somebody about this issue. And like they hear about it and they're like, holy shit, like we're going to figure this out. And after an entire day, we finally get an answer like, no. Like I remember my mom being on the phone after we were down there. We got all the numbers. We got everything we needed. My mom's on the phone. And the customer service rep, God bless her, had no idea what we were talking about. So she had classified our call as like we were trying to figure out if we could use a ticket that was unused. And so she was like, "No, this ticket, it was never redeemed. He never checked in for the flight. And that doesn't mean you can't use it. If you guys would like to book a flight right now, like you can use the ticket and it's still good." And my mom was like, "We're not trying to book a flight. Was there a refund issued for this ticket?" She was like, "No, ma'am. Like it's in our system. You can use it. It's okay." And my mom
Yeah.
just hung up on her, which like, sorry, customer service lady, you were awesome. You were being so kind. But
Yeah.
so it was bullshit, complete bullshit. And this guy was very tied in.
Why even make up that lie? It's almost like he just wanted you to think that, like, oh, well, this is his choice.
Well, yeah. I
That's
mean,
so
I guess the
weird.
thought was that we were bumpkins who weren't going to look into it. But this guy was also very close with the rabbi and his wife. They all hung out together. when they were in Texas, because they have a home in Texas. They have a home in Addison, Texas, and then they have their location down in Cabo San Lucas. And so,
This is suspicious.
so
I'm a true crime.
I know.
we now were able to identify that this guy was bad business, and any information he gave us was bullshit. And
You call him back?
No, absolutely not. When I tell you this guy's like, he's threatened to sue so many people that I know, and people who look into him and figure out that like he's not kosher, 100%. Just yeah. And he was also very close to the head pastor at this church we were at, which, like, I will say, because I want to focus on the church's response. I know we gotta draw this to, like, we're gonna have to do part 2. The church's response within the first week of Elijah, he was missing. He was gone. He was unaccounted for. We had to figure out what to do. I remember that Sunday at service, one of the elders, Terry, whom has passed away, unfortunately, but Terry, I think the best way to describe Terry Lindsay is that he was one of the greatest men that probably will ever walk the planet. He was one of the kindest, most genuine, authentic. Every conversation you had with him could have changed you for life. He got up in the middle of service, and he let everybody know that Elijah was missing and that we all needed to come together as a congregation and pray, which in its essence is very touching action, but we had not been forewarned at all. And I remember as he was talking, I just got up and I walked out, and I walked across the street to the coffee shop, and I unlocked it and I sat down at the bar, and one of my baristas was closing, and I just sat there and talked to him. And Terry made his way, which I guess saying his name really identifies the church, but I don't give a shit. I don't. My brother's still missing, and I don't care.
That's right.
He came over there and he apologized to me and he hugged me, and his heart was so pure. He wasn't flexing our tragedy. He genuinely was heartbroken for us, and I still think about that all the time. And he even had the wherewithal to know that I just needed to be mad, and he told me that I could be mad at him, and that was okay. So the church did a couple of they did and still do have a very active, like, prayer room, and they have worship constantly running in this prayer room. And so they did a couple prayer sets, like focusing on Elijah and like praying and that kind of stuff, and then just kind of move forward, which is, you have to, but like it was moved forward in a way that, like, my dad was in a bad place. I think it was either 2 or 3 days after Elijah went missing, I woke up at 5 a.m. I don't know if I'm able to say this without. I woke up at like 5 or 5:30, and I woke up to this sound, and I was like, "What the fuck is that noise?" And it was the most, like, horrific noise I'd ever heard. And I opened the door, and my dad was curled up at the foot of his bed, wailing into the bed, praying to God to return his son, to give us anything.
Hey, take your time.
Yeah.
Take a deep breath and just sit with it for a second. So you've gone through something really, really hard.
So, yeah, that I don't know why I brought that up. My dad was in a bad place.
This is part of it.
My dad was in a really bad place, and I don't know if this was. I'm going to assume it was after. So we established Elijah's missing. We have to do something. What do we do? My parents, my dad, my brother, Sam, and I decided we're going to go down there and we're going to look for him.
To Cabo.
We're going to Cabo. We're going to look for him. We know where to start, and my dad speaks Spanish, and we'll be okay. And we are getting ready to go, and my uncle shows up, and my mom stops me and Sam, pulls us aside, and it was like, your dad, myself, and your uncle are going to go. You guys are not going to go. And,
They can't lose you too.
we were pissed. Why can't we go? And my mom was like, I don't think you guys all together is going to be a good thing down there. Like, we're going to go. We've got your dad. We're going to figure out, what's what. Uncle Dale is well connected. Uncle Dale is, Uncle Dale's cool as hell. He really is
I don't think anybody named Uncle Dale is
he's a former
be.
Aggie. Well, I guess
Yeah.
you're never a former Aggie. He's an Aggie, Marine. He has a cool job, guy, but he's got a very unassuming demeanor. You would think he's just kind of like a whatever dude, but I really feel like my uncle could probably kill somebody in 15 different ways.
Sure, yep.
And he's always a jokester, and he what did he used to call me? Bend over. He's the first one to call
my
me Bend over.
gosh.
I think to this day, if I meet him somewhere, he'll still call me Mr. Dover. Like
Oh
if I
my
run into him.
goodness.
But anyway, so Sam and I,
I don't know what I was expecting, but it was not bend over.
I mean, they called me turnip page as a kid, so I guess
that's the common one. Bend over or bend jamming. So they went down there, and I remember Sam and I sitting in the living room after they all left. Like,
shocked.
I asked him, I was like, what do we do? And he was like, we just got to keep living, and we got to keep building something for Elijah to come back to. And that simple sentence defined my life for like 5-6 years. That's all I did. I built something for Elijah to come back to, and that led me into rough situations, rough waters. But they went down to Mexico, and many years, I think a year ago, I really got like the full story of everything that went down. As we were setting up the coffee shop in Alaska, they shared more of the story down there, and it was bad. They went to the rabbi's home, and my dad knocked on the door and started pleading with him in tears to tell him where Elijah was. And this dude and his wife, and I think the girls too, just laughed at him and closed the door. They just laughed at him. They said he was crazy, and they closed the door. They didn't know anything, and they closed the door on my dad. And that's when my dad really like started to shadow. He started to go into a bad place, which I mean, my mom was right. If my brother Sam and I had been there, I wouldn't. Yeah. I wouldn't have let him close the door.
Especially because you've been there, you worked with the man, so it's like a little bit different.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like you would have been very more like defensive, I guess.
Yeah. And like maybe this little dude has karate skills and he could have kicked my ass, but there was 3 of us and we would have done something. It would have been horrible. But they spent a week getting. It was weird. They got nowhere with the rabbi, and then the next day they were going out for some coffee at like 5 a.m. My dad needed coffee, and they bumped into this police officer, and the guy was like, he was asking them what they were doing in Mexico and stuff like that. And my dad told him, and he was like, I'm on sabbatical for like a week. Like, I'll help you guys. Like, I'm so sorry you're going through this. Like, let's figure it out. Let's figure out what's going on. Where do we need to go? Who do we need to talk to? And so the first part of the day, they were going places that my mom and dad knew that they needed to go, and they were talking to people. They tried to talk to my brother's roommate, and they couldn't find him. They went to the restaurant my brother's roommate worked at. He wasn't there. The people that my brother had been friends with, suddenly just couldn't find him, couldn't talk to him. And then as the days went on, I think there was one day that the police chief he wasn't the chief. I think he was just an officer, or detective or something, lieutenant maybe. And he's like, I heard a rumor about a couple of guys who said they know something. Like, let's go see if we can find them. And they pulled off at a gas station, and my dad told my mom to go inside the gas station, and he went in with her, and he was like, you need to buy a Coke or buy anything in a glass bottle. And she was like, why? She was like, Teresa, this guy, he's been leading us around for 3 days. He said things that are weird and that he shouldn't know. He's had information he shouldn't know. He's not helping us.
The police.
And so my mom suddenly had this realization that my dad was looking at this gas station trying to figure out what he could use as a weapon while she broke the Coke bottle and killed this guy if they had to, because he was convinced. Yeah.
That's crazy, you guys.
I hate to leave y'all on a cliffhanger, but we're going to have to.
Yeah, we're running out of time.
Because I know you've got so much more.
We haven't even this. I mean, obviously, it's almost a decade later.
It'll
be 10 years in January, and there's not a trace, not a sign, not a symbol, nothing.
Who's there in that area, you guys? We're bringing this back to life.
Look, I'm going to find you.
No, come on.
Hey,
I'll drop a name,
if you want to DM me, I'll give you the names and addresses of everybody involved. I will. I know where they are right now.
If there's questions you guys have, drop them.
Their address is publicly listed.
That's what I'm telling you. Can you imagine?
Literally.
Because this is unsolved. This is unsolved, you guys.
Mystery.
Oh my God, I cannot wait
Ben,
for part 2.
Well, we're going to stop there for the day and come back
We're
to
not even
part
filming
2.
part 2 right now.
Hey, just like, thanks
Yeah.
for sharing this.
Yeah.
I know this
Ben,
is really
oh my
vulnerable
God,
and
thank
hard,
you.
So
Yeah,
thanks
and
for-
I'll see if I can find the article, and we can link it in the show notes.
Yes.
And then I'm sure I'll insert some random. The shit of it is, the mess that I was talking about that I made of my life and trying to build something for Elijah. I did a lot of symbolic rebirthing in 2018, and that included nuking my old Facebook, which in theory is a great idea. But when you have a dead or missing brother and all of your photos
Yes.
and everything is attached to that Facebook,
Yeah.
really stupid idea. Luckily, I didn't delete my old Instagram that featured all the photos from the. Oh wait, I did that as well.
That as well.
I did that as well. So
All lost.
yeah, I'll insert what I have there. I know there's photos of us.
Maybe one of y'all have heard or seen
Seen him.
something.
You know what's funny? I did post about it on Reddit for a long time, and Reddit is the only place I got traction. Only place. We had this guy who spent 3 years, and I'll talk about this next time. He spent like 3 years writing an article about it. And the day that we went live, this was going to be front page, Dallas Morning News. The day that we went live, we got pushed to the back page because somebody decided it was time to pull down Confederate statues. That was more
No, we need
important.
it back at the top.
Yeah.
We need to take
Yeah.
a trip to Cabo.
Confederate statues can come down, but my brother's disappearance should
Maybe
also.
those girls are fans of us.
Well, so to circle back, I'll be quick. I'm sorry. Somebody reached out to me on Reddit, started asking me questions. And suddenly she was asking very pointed questions. And I finally was like, I was like 7 questions in, and I was like, who are you? And why are you asking me these questions? And she revealed
chills, you guys.
that she was the cousin of one of the girls who was down there. And she gave me the side of the story that they were not allowed to come back to the States to see their family at all. They weren't allowed to communicate with them. Any communications with their family had to be monitored by this rabbi and his wife.
Oh, well, this is getting
Yeah.
good. You
So
guys.
it's-
okay.
yeah.
Part 2 is coming, you guys.
Holy
Oh my God, man. Thank you for the next episode is next week, you guys.
Buckle up,
So don't
baby.
worry. It's coming.
Holy baloney. Well, I guess, keep the giggles going
And the love flowing.
until next time. Moms know best.
I mean, his mom did know. She had a
My,
feeling.
my
she
mom
did.
did know
She had a
best.
feeling best.
Moms know best, and we're going to solve this shit.
That's right. We are.
Holy
Mom's the
crap.
word is solving it.
See y'all
Elijah,
Elijah Hernandez.
go ahead. Someone go ahead. Send it to him.
We're coming for
Or the
you.
rabbi. You know who it is.
He's probably not even a real rabbi. I'm going to be honest with you. He's probably full of shit.
Somebody knows somebody. All right, we're just getting started, you guys. Thank you for joining us. This is kind of a different episode, but we're grateful that you're here.
Yes.
And you get to know part of Ben that we didn't even know, but we're excited that he can share this because any word is good word out there. And we're excited that we get to share it here with you guys.